What's going on, boys and girls, and welcome back to the channel. And guess what, guys? Finally, we've had something significant enough happen that we've got content for a full-length video. I know, it's about time. Crucify me, stone me, whatever. I apologize, but it has been very boring, routine, and mundane around here lately. Just your regular feedings and waterings, the occasional molt, and besides the breeding project I brought you a couple of months ago, we're still waiting on this girl. I haven't had content enough for a regular full-length video until now. Last week I had two spiders that molted within a few days of each other, and as luck and nature's will would have it, both of them needed an upgrade with their next molt, which is now. So we are going to be doing a double rehousing today, folks. A tarantula and a true spider. It ought to be pretty tame. Pause this video, go get yourselves a drink and a snack, gather up your friends, your siblings, whoever to watch this video. I'm going to get reset up, and let's put these spiders in their new homes while we talk about them. So here in a minute I will put the camera on the tripod, but this is our first candidate for a new home. Some of you will recognize that this is a tarantula. An even more experienced eye could probably recognize that it is a New World tarantula, and an even more experienced eye may be able to even recognize just the genus. You might confuse the species, but you probably know the genus. So this is her new home. This is her old home. I am going to move this one out of the way, set my camera up, take all of that stuff out because it's going to make it easier for me to get to her, to cup her, to take her out, to put her in her new home. And while I do that, I will share all the facts and details that I know about this beautiful species of tarantula. Alright, folks, so here is our first candidate for a new home. Like I said, I'm going to remove all of this stuff. It will make it much easier for me to cup her and get her out of the enclosure. Less stress, the better, and put her in their new home. While I'm pulling all this stuff out, I will share with you the details that I have gathered on this particular species, which I will now reveal, I guess. This is from the Tliltocatl genus, which most of you experienced keepers may be able to recognize, but you may confuse it with the Tliltocatl vagans, or vagans, or vagans, the Mexican red rump. This is actually a close relative, but it is not the T. vagans. This species here is the Tliltocatl epicureanus, formerly known as Epicureanum. They are closely related to the T. vagans, the Mexican red rump. Their distribution areas overlap, but they are different, and there are some differences which I'm going to discuss. But I need some different tongs to get that skull out, so hang tight. Alright, y'all, sorry about that. I had to get something that was a little bit more rigid and had a little bit better grip, that I could get this thing up and out of here without dropping it. So the last thing I want to do is drop it on the spider. And of course, one foot is hung up on part of the decoration. There we go. Skull is free and clear. I'll deal with that later. She has been in this enclosure for at least 3 years. That's why there's so many water dishes and other accessories and stuff in here. She's obviously outgrown this. I mean, she was outgrown on it with the last molt. But I was going to give her one more molt, and then we were going to rehouse her, and she does need a rehouse now. I've never really had any trouble out of her, except for that little slap strike as far as kicking hairs or being defensive. And I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a look at her for a minute while I relay some of these details I told you that I was going to give you as I was moving stuff. This is the Tliltocatl epicureanus. The common name is the Yucatan rust rump. These guys are from the Yucatan Peninsula, which is the far southeast area of Mexico, right where Mexico and Central America merge. The Yucatan Peninsula separates the Gulf of America to the north, And to the west is Mexico, and to the north is the Gulf of America. The Caribbean Sea is to the east of the tip of the Yucatan Peninsula, and this whole area is adjacent to Belize and Guatemala, which are the first two countries in Central America. There are a few other bodies of water that converge on that area, and the Yucatan Peninsula is not a very large landmass, so it is a very rainforesty type of area. When I got this thing, I got it as a freebie. There was not a whole lot of information on them, so I kept them like I do all my other Brackies and Tliltocatls. Turns out these guys apparently live in more of a humid environment than a lot of others, so that's kind of how I've set up the new home. There's not a whole lot video and article-wise, unless you want to do some really deep digging about the differences. Besides the fact, from what I know from personal experience and appearance, obviously the Tliltocatl vagans is very common in the hobby, the Mexican red rump, and the Tliltocatl epicureanus. To be honest, when I got this one, I didn't mean to, no rhyme intended there, but when I got this one probably 5 years ago, I don't think I'd ever even heard of it. It was epicureanum back then, so they just changed the letter, whatever. But I didn't know a whole lot about them, except for they are, as you can see, much blacker and velvety. And to me, especially with the vagans that I've had, their rump tends to be much redder than the vagans itself. And they tend to get bigger as adults than the vagans does. Like I said, their territories overlap. But apparently vagans goes further into Central America, but they are they're like the Hamori versus Smithy in the Tliltocatl genus. Basically, like, what's the difference between them? They're pretty close. In my experience in keeping, I've had one epicureanum, this lady right here, almost never have given me a problem except for that little threat posture and slap strike a while ago, and I think I just startled her. Whereas my vagans have been pretty docile, but from molt to molt, they tended to get kind of kicky, just like the Brachypelma bomi did for me. So the last vagans I had, she got to about this size, and she was an adult female. I sold her probably 3 years ago to a breeder because I didn't really have any purpose for her. This girl will get bigger than she is now. So what I'm going to do is stop yapping, because I think I've covered everything except for the backstory on this girl. And I'm going to try to get her in this cup without hair kicking and all that kind of stuff. And then we'll rearrange the camera and put her in her new home. So here goes nothing, guys. Wish me luck. This one may be a bit small for the job. Well, that's what I was afraid of. Yep, this one is too small, so I'm going to have to switch to my larger Tom Moran Simply Limeade container. And hopefully we can avoid her kicking any more hairs, because she just got her new outfit. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so that you can kind of see a little more of what the heck is going on here. Hopefully she doesn't kick too bad for us this time, especially if we hit it diagonally. This is not the thing that I'm looking for, but I can't find it, so in a pinch this will work. There she goes. Almost no hair kicking. Sorry if you can't see anything. I'm more focused on the animal right now. So there she is. That beautiful bright red rump. Now she's in her home. I'm going to rearrange the camera, give you the backstory on her, and we're going to put her in her new house. Okay, so before I put the camera on the tripod and rehouse this thing, I just thought I would give you guys a look at her new home. Like I said, I learned a little bit about their habitat and their husbandry with this video, so I'm going to keep her more rainforesty set up. So we've got a nice hide for her. I was afraid at first it was too busy with all the foliage until I read that they're a rainforesty kind of tarantula. And I left her some floor space over here to be a terrestrial tarantula. So let's go ahead and get her in and I'll give you the backstory on this girl. All right, y'all. So the backstory on this girl goes like this. I got her as a freebie, I believe, from an individual. And she was a spiderling, quite small, probably a half an inch. I can't quite remember, but I do know that it's been at least 5 years ago since I received her, and she's been quite a slow grower, but she's been a pretty nice and gentle specimen. I've got the wrong tool for the job. Hold on. She's never really given me a lot of problems. We don't have trouble with a lot of hair kicking, no threat postures, no attitude, nothing like that. She did kick one last puff of hairs there, which I'm going to step back for a second. The unfortunate thing about keeping New Worlds is if you start out allergic to their hairs, you don't get more immune and it doesn't get any better. So it takes less and less to get irritated by their hairs, but I am going to zoom in on this beautiful girl while I talk about her backstory. As I mentioned, I got her as a freebie, probably a half-inch sling. Didn't know a whole lot about them. There wasn't a whole lot of information about the Epicureanum online. I just knew they were separate from the Vagans and that they're just like the Hamori and Smithy. There were differences, you know, if you knew what to look for. There's a little bit more out there, and I'm sure if somebody wanted to do a deeper dive, they could probably find out more detailed differences between the two. But I've explained what I knew about them appearance-wise and distribution-wise and experience. Like I said, with temperament, my Vagans tended to kick hairs more. You saw maybe 2 hair kickings in this video. That's the most hair kicking she's ever done in her life. So the backstory on this girl is, like I was saying, she was about 2.5 inches, and I was doing my regular maintenance on her enclosure one day, and I was filling her water dish, and she decided to try to go for a walkabout, and I tried to quickly put the lid back on her critter keeper. Unseen by me, I caught one of her pedipalps in between the top of the critter keeper and the lid. I noticed maybe a half hour later, she was still in the same position, and I noticed that she was stuck. When I pulled the top off, I noticed the tip of the pedipalp was just flat like in a cartoon. I felt absolutely horrible. It was bleeding. I was freaking out, didn't know what to do. Wasn't a whole lot known back then about the bleeding part of it, and I didn't have super glue, so I did the cornstarch on a Q-tip, and it wouldn't block it up. It just kept bleeding, and I was afraid she was going to die. I kept my eye on her for several days. Then about a week later, I looked in on her, and she seemed to be getting around a lot better. And that's when I noticed she only had 1 pedipalp. And I've known this from talking with like Tom Moran and others experienced with tarantulas, that sometimes when they know that a limb is damaged beyond repair, they will pop it off at the joint to sacrifice it, and then they'll regrow it with subsequent molts. So apparently she had popped the pedipalp off. By the next molt, she had a whole new pedipalp, but she had one tiny shriveled up little leg, which is this one right here, which was actually looking weird, staying curled underneath her with the last molt, and it eventually grew back. So she's been one of the luckiest spiders that I've had. I don't have a name for her, and up until this last molt, I actually wasn't able to confirm that she was female, although I was, pretty certain that she was. So now, if anybody out there is interested in making a submission, I would entertain some suggestions for a name for her. I think that's all I have on this beautiful girl, guys. We got our new Tliltocatl Epicureanus, or Epicure. Yucatan rust rump in her new home. Now let's get on to the spider I'm most excited about rehousing. So this right here is the one that I am the most excited about. This is our true spider. I got this, probably 4 months ago. Some of you will remember the unboxing video. She has now outgrown her current enclosure, and it's time to put her in a new enclosure. And the reason I'm excited is because we're finally going to be able to get a good look at her. when we put her in her new home. This is my Asianopis aspectans. This is the female Cameroon net casting spider or ogre-faced spider. In my experience, a very stoic and calm and not easily rattled spider. Very easy to take care of and pretty interesting to watch them hunt. I just wanted to give you a look of her current enclosure and her new enclosure before we get to moving her. Okay guys, under this piece of cardboard, it's probably the neatest spider that I currently own and probably have ever owned. And the reason for the cardboard on top is because this container came with one of these little snap lid things which created and undid a vacuum every time I took the lid off, which was the only way to get access to the spider. I quickly figured out that it was just causing her too much undue stress with maintenance. So I just went with the cardboard laid on top, and she usually webs off the top of it. And now we're going to try to get her out. And I'm hoping that we can get some looks at this girl because I haven't been able to get any really good angles on her since I housed her. Some of you will remember back in April, I acquired this young lady right here from, sorry, I forgot my light, Marshall Arachnids. Years ago, I went to looking for these guys. Back then, they were all known as Asianopis. Nowadays, there are two different genera, or whatever you want to call them. The Dinopus and then the Asianopus. She is the Asianopus. Back then, they were all Dinopus, and they were more common and readily available in the UK and Europe. And occasionally here in the United States, some individual would get a hold of some imports, but not a whole lot. So they sold out very quickly, and not a whole lot was known about them until the past few years. And Ryan and Jessica at Marshall Arachnids took on a project called Operation Safety Net to learn more about this species in captivity and then start to breed them and then make them more available to the general public. And so they've been working on it for years, building up the population until back in January they hatched their first bunch that would be available to the public. Pardon me guys, I got to figure out how to get her out of there because I've never moved one of these before. Alright guys, so let's see if this works. I've got all the limbs and everything out of there. Maybe we can just kind of coax her up and out of the enclosure. These guys, although they are extremely wicked looking, are actually fairly docile and not ready to defend themselves, especially with a bite. I really want to get this girl to where we can look at her. She was a 6th instar spiderling when I got her, and you can see she's not defensive at all. She's just more like leave me alone. She's a lot like some of the orb weavers. I've got to figure out how to get her out of here, guys. Hold on. Okay, guys, it took me a couple of minutes to get her to chill out and stop moving. But this is the best look at my Asianopis aspectans that I have gotten since I got her. This is the best look that we've had on video. I mentioned there are two different species of the netcaster spiders, the Asianopus and the Dinopus. And from what I have learned just in the past hour or so on the web, the Dinopus are basically the New World net casting spiders, whereas Asianopus are the Old World. One of the differences being, and if I can get her to sit still long enough, the Dinopus do not have those little horn-looking, they call them setae fringe or some kind of fringe over the eyes. The Dinopus do not have those. The Asianopus does. They are a net casting spider, obviously, so they don't build an elaborate web to capture their prey. They build a sticky net that they hold with their front legs, and then they catch the prey that way. With the Asianopus and probably the Dinopus as well, I'm not 100% sure. there is sexual dimorphism around sexual maturity. The males will have a smooth cylindrical abdomen, whereas the females, like this girl right here, will develop what are being called lady lumps. If I can get her to be still just long enough here on her abdomen, you will see those lumps kind of like ladies have. So that denotes that she is female. I'm going to try to go ahead and put her in her enclosure and let her do a little bit of exploring. And then maybe we can just kind of observe her behavior while I talk about him a little more. She should be getting close to sexual maturity, although I don't know a whole lot about that side of them. But to kind of go harken back to the Project Safety Net, Ryan and Jessica from Marshall Arachnids were the first people to make these spiders readily available here in the States. And they have been working on a program for the conservation, preservation, breeding, and education of this species, and more hopefully to come later on. And so they have been working for years on breeding these guys and getting their populations up so that they could start making them available to the general public and educating people on them. They've got some videos. I will include links to the videos, but this is new. I've been looking for these guys for years. I finally got one in April. She was hatched the second day of 2025, January the 2nd. I bought her on April the 1st, and I got her April the 3rd, I believe. This is her third molt with me. She was a 6th instar when I got her. So I would figure at this point, knowing the little bit I know, that she may be pretty close to being ready to breed. So, Ryan, if you're watching this video, reach out to me. Let me know if this girl is ready, because I would like to be one of those here in the United States to try to breed these. I'll at least attempt it. You know what I mean? So, holler at me on that. For the rest of y'all, I hope you did enjoy this video. You'll let me know with a thumbs up and a comment. Big shout out to Ryan and Jessica at Marshall Arachnids. A big shout out to whoever gave me the Epicurianus as a freebie 5 years ago. Big shout out to all the rest of y'all. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Haven't fucking done it, guys. Subscribe. Take care of yourselves and each other. And always, guys, sometimes that's all we've got is ourselves. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you enjoy your day. Thank you so much, guys. Thanks for watching. God bless.